Hello, today we are going to discuss Mendelian genetics. So, Mendelian genetics was named after Gregor Mendel. He was an Austrian monk who lived from 1822 to 1884, and he discovered multiple principles of inheritance by studying key plants in the garden, and he is nicknamed the father of genetics for his discoveries. So, some information. So, when the sex cells unite to form a zygote, half the genetic information comes from the mother and the other half comes from the father. So when the sperm and egg come together to make, again, that full zygote amount, so remember sex cells are half the amount, they come together to make the full amount. So inside all your cells, half your DNA is from your father and half is from the mother. Now, there are different versions of genes which are known as alleles. So, for example, if there is a gene for eye color, the different alleles would just be all the different colors of eyes: brown, green, blue, gray, etc. Okay? Now, the mother and the father are not genetically identical to one another and have many different alleles for many different genes. So we're talking hair shape, hair color, height, metabolism, literally everything that makes an organism comes from DNA, and they get half the DNA from their father, half from the mother. They're sexually reproducing organisms. Now, some alleles are dominant to others, meaning that the dominant allele is the one that will be shown in the offspring, despite both alleles being present in the genetic code. Okay, so usually when it comes to color, basically the darker allele usually is dominant to a lighter allele, which that allele is not dominant, it's known as recessive. So basically with Mendelian genetics, looking at these pair of homologous chromosomes, you get two versions of a gene, and one of those versions is going to be dominant to the other. And whichever one is dominant, whichever version or allele of that gene is dominant, that is the one that is going to be actually expressed and shown. So for example, if black hair is dominant to white hair, so let's say the father gives you the allele for black hair, the mother gives you the allele for white hair, you'll still have inside you both the mother's allele with the white hair and the dad's allele with the black hair, but the only color hair you're going to have is black. So that's how dominant and recessive alleles relate to one another. Now carrying on a topic we discussed in a previous video, so this is how genetic variation is an advantage. So most of the time, but not always, the healthy allele is dominant to the mutated or unhealthy. So again, most of the time, but not always, healthy unmutated DNA is dominant to unhealthy mutated DNA. So if the healthy allele from one parent unites with the unhealthy allele from another parent, there is a high likelihood that the offspring will only physically experience the healthy allele, both alleles still being present. So again, doesn't matter what the other allele is, if there's at least one dominant or healthy allele, the other allele or part of your DNA could be unhealthy or the mutated one, but if it's recessive, the only thing you as the organism experience is the healthy dominant allele. And we can see here, for example, let's say the mother, had the healthy allele and the father didn't. When they come together, you still only experience the healthy version of that gene. So this is how genetic variation can prevent and limit negative mutations. So again, with asexual organisms, they just keep accumulating mutations more and more over time. Some of them, again, can be positive, but mostly are negative. This, again, because if you had negative mutations, but then mate with someone with good healthy genes, healthy alleles, that can basically, again, prevent and limit those negative mutations from lasting in the next generation or the generation after that. Okay, Trees. So I like to think of the two different chromosomes, two different alleles of the gene, um, as two trees together. So the dominant and recessive alleles of homologous chromosomes are like two trees, where one tree is in the shadow of another tree. So there's still two trees, still two chromosomes, still two different alleles of that gene. However, the dominant allele will cast a shadow on the recessive allele. So one chromosome basically casts a shadow on the other. The dominant one casts the shadow over the recessive. So the trait you see in the offspring is the trait of the dominant tree or the dominant allele. And you can see that. Now, a common misconception is that most genes do not have this simple form of dominant and recessive alleles. Most genes are very complex and have multiple factors that determine what traits will be seen in the offspring. The genes that Gregor Mendel observed happen to follow this means of inheritance and is why it is referred to as Mendelian genetics. Even though Mendelian genetics are uncommon, the reason we begin learning about inheritance with Mendelian genetics is because they provide the most clarity for a simple understanding of heredity. Now we introduce some new vocabulary, um, and I will let you just pause the screen and read each of those at your leisure. Thank you for watching. Please share and subscribe, and remember to spread kindness.